You're listening to Inclusive AF with Jackie Clayton and Katee Van Horn.
All right. Welcome, folks. This is Katee Van Horn, and I am without my sidekick today. Jackie is not going to be joining us, but I did bring along a fun guest to have a conversation with, so we can learn a little bit today, even in Jackie's absence. So, first off, I wanted to just say welcome to the Inclusive AF podcast, Curtis. Would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about who you are.
Glad to be here. I appreciate you inviting me. My name is Curtis Forbes. I am your typical musician turned entrepreneur. How deep into my story would you like me to go? I'm happy to give you all the details.
Well, I would love to hear a little bit about, kind of how you got to this place of building a recognition platform. So what was your journey like, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, first of all, I mean, I probably would say that, across whether it's music, education, technology, I mean, my career has really always been centered, I think, on building systems that unlock, we'll say, potential in people. I started my career as a jazz musician. I got a few degrees in music, spent about 15 years performing, teaching, and about 22 years ago, I shifted into some entrepreneurship, and I founded Forbes Music, which was an education company that we scaled across the US. And it gave me that firsthand experience managing large distributed teams. Since then, I founded and exited a few ventures, including a video tech startup in 2018, and a portfolio of education companies, actually, that I just recently exited early this year. It was really over the pandemic that I wound up sharpening my focus on a lot of workplace challenges and having to deal with the turnover bug. And we worked with, I mean, just such a wide variety of people, that fit into virtually every type of classification you could imagine, which frankly made a lot of the solutions that we vetted in the marketplace really difficult to use. I think it was fairly complicated, and so that's kind of what brought me to where I am today. I've exited all those other ventures. I'm solely focused on Mustard Hub right now, and hopefully making or helping other companies become destinations for workplace happiness.
Awesome. Very cool. So tell us, thank you for sharing that. So tell us, what instruments do you play? This is the critical question of the whole interview.
I am principally a guitar player. If you could see it, you'd see a whole string of them all the way right over there. I doubled on upright bass,
Wow.
and I fake a little bit of piano.
Okay. Very good. All right. So we know where to start the next HR Tech band.
There
You'll
you go.
be the lead guitarist for us. So that's good. That's good. We do, for those of you who've been to HR Tech Fest or HR Tech, you do realize that there is a lot of karaoke involved, a lot of happy hours with karaoke. So Curtis can be your guitarist for any type of karaoke, it sounds like. So now we know. Now we know who we can call on if we need it.
Right. But if you want me singing, I'll have to make sure I spend a few minutes at the bar first.
Of course. I think that's kind of how everyone does start. So it works out perfectly. All good. So tell us a little bit about Mustard Hub. What does it do? How does it work? Who is it for?
Sure. So Mustard Hub is an employee engagement platform and AI predictive insights, right, that helps companies eliminate turnover and keep their great people by making them feel recognized, connected, and supported. In short, that's essentially what it is. Excuse me. It's designed essentially to help companies keep people, right? It combines a lot of peer-driven recognition, life-aligned support, and some predictive analytics, so employees can feel supported and recognized and really develop sort of that community within the organization. I think unlike a lot of traditional HR software, it's pretty lightweight. It's culture first. It's built to scale across all sorts of different types of organizations, franchises, small businesses, and multi-location teams.
Okay, cool. And tell me, like, how does that tie into, obviously this is a DEI podcast. How does that tie into, and what have you done from an AI perspective to focus on diversity and focus on kind of that inclusion aspect in recognition?
Well, I think that what Mustard Hub does, it solves this. We have what we call really a recognition blind spot, and that blind spot really is a function of leaders often recognizing or celebrating their people really in the image of the way that they themselves like to be recognized, right? And that's it's a fairly common problem that we see, and so generally we shift the recognition from managers only to peer first, so we layer analytics to surface engagement risks leaders would otherwise miss. The platform turns these everyday signals like recognition density, feedback frequency, all these different types of communication and participation analytics into a lot of early warnings for burnout and attrition. And that really closes the blind spot by making invisible contributions visible and actionable.
Awesome. So how does it work? So, if I am looking to implement this, how does it work, and what's the cool thing that you're going to be introducing at HR Tech this year? So that's that twofold question. How does it work? And then what's new that you're going to be introducing?
Well, generally speaking, I would say Mustard Hub as a whole, we're going to be, introducing. We have been around for a couple of years. We've just recently released beta of our new platform. So we will be sort of, hopefully making a big splash, there. I think what's nice about Mustard Hub, most HR systems are built for compliance, record keeping, not necessarily culture. We designed it specifically to operationalize engagement and recognition and these predictive insights. It's pretty fast to deploy. It's the only one in our category really that is a freemium model. You can sign up for it in minutes and get started, invite your team and start engaging with them. And it's, like I said, fast to deploy. It can be used by employees on a day-to-day basis. So it's not just typical HR stuff. It makes it a better fit for people solving these recognition blind spots because I think it's designed around people and not paperwork, so to speak.
Yeah. Does it plug into the HRIS tool that folks are using? So, PeopleSoft, Workday, UKG, that type of thing. Is there an API?
It does. So over 280 integrations on our top tier plan, so you can integrate with just about anything that you need to. Without really actually any HR complexity. You don't need an IT person in order to do this, and you don't need a dedicated HR professional in order to understand how it works, right? It's built for operators mostly, and not for any sort of HR complexity.
Got it. Very cool. And so
Yeah.
so one of the things I always worry about is that, you might have, when it is a peer-to-peer situation, do you have people that overinflate, like, hey, I'll write a recommendation for you if you write a recommendation or give me recognition of some sort. So how do you think about that? And how does the, I don't know if it's training or rollout go, so you can really let folks know how to use this correctly?
Well, I guess I would have to say that any system can be gamified,
Right.
to some degree. I think by anchoring this recognition to company values and a few other, sort of fancy things that we have in there, some structured templates and different accolades, we can sort of change that narrative a little bit. I think popularity contests can become a risk as well if things are left a little unstructured. And, when recognition's tied to these things like values and guided by, mechanisms that we have in place, it becomes more purposeful, I think, rather than either arbitrary, right? Or like, you were mentioning, right? Or alluding to the fact that it can be gamified in a different way. You know, instead of likes, employees can affirm behaviors that are aligned with collaboration or innovation or care. The analytics can also surface whether recognition is evenly distributed or if it's being hoarded, so leaders can spot some unhealthy patterns, right? In other words, I think design matters, right? Structured peer recognition prevents misuse and sort of ensures that it reflects the culture and not the clicks.
Right. Okay. Very cool. So what is to give me a success story. Give me a story of how you've implemented it, where and obviously don't reveal anything that wouldn't be appropriate to reveal, of course, but where have you implemented this that you really feel like it was a success and it's working well?
Well, there've been quite a few. I mean, I would say one of the clearest ways to show our impact is through the retention, right? I mean, because I mean, I think ultimately the goal here is to keep people, right? Reduce turnover, attract great talent. Even just replacing one $15 an hour employee can cost a company between $3,500 and $5,000. I mean, turnover is expensive. If Mustard Hub helps an employer even retain a single member, right, it offsets the entire cost of our premium tier and then some, right? So we've seen early customers recognize this ROI, I think, pretty quickly. And we'll take, we do have some early childhood education, for an example. It's a good one where we have actually, or we have had, I should say, a lot of users from the very beginning. We've piloted Mustard Hub across multiple schools. At one of our location, turnover dropped for, what I'd call preventable turnover, right? Outside opportunities. At one location, it actually dropped to zero across an entire year. Another cut turnover in half. A third went from, I'd say, almost 20% down to none. It's remarkable. I mean, across those sites that I'm thinking about right now and talking about specifically, that translates into savings of like, I don't know, probably anywhere between 80 to 120, $130,000 a year in avoided replacement costs. I mean, that is an enormous number. And HR tends to be a cost center, or at least thought of as a cost center for most organizations. We saw a similar story with private equity, a holdings company, portfolio companies with historically high turnover. After rolling it out, they reduced attrition by, gosh, depending on the organization within the PE, anywhere between 30 and 80% in the first year alone. So when we talk about ROI, right, it's not just theoretical. I think across
Yeah.
these businesses, Mustard Hub helps these employers retain dozens of employees and save, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars annually.
Right, right. So, this is now I'm going to ask more of a personal to me question.
Yeah.
Do you have it translated into different languages? Is it something that's English only, or what? How do you support global organizations?
So right now, at the moment, our platform is US only.
Okay.
It is in our roadmap to internationalize. That's so we can add all different languages and start to expand into different countries globally. But at the moment, right now, and probably, excuse me, I would say at least through Q1 of next year, it's still going to stay US only for now. So English and US. Yep.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. So tell me, I'm going to step back a moment and I want you to tell me a little bit about this whole concept of feeling seen. When you think about Mustard Hub, what do you mean by feeling seen or by folks feeling seen?
Well, I think that, well, I have I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah.
It depends on how far and how deep we want to go. I think, basically, I think that we run into a problem when leaders are recognizing contributions that look like their own, leaving these diverse voices unseen, unheard, unrecognized. Manager-driven recognition has been the default, I think, because well, A, it's hierarchical, and B, it's easy to measure, right? But it's also narrow, and it tends to be bias. Defining feeling seen, it means being recognized, not just for output, but your unique circumstances, contributions, and context. I think it means, finding that being being valued essentially by the organization. Employees increasingly, I think, want recognition that affirms who they are and what they're balancing in life, not just what they deliver oftentimes, right? We recently conducted a survey that found that well over half, say that these personalized life aligned support makes them feel seen. And this ranks higher than traditional recognition programs, right? Millennials, Gen Z, this inches like up to and probably just over 60%, right? The recognition must move from generic gestures to context aware validation that acknowledges people as whole human beings. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I know. I think that's great. And I think that's something that is missing so often is that, I'll say, at the level that, depending on where you are in the organization, having that peer-to-peer recognition is so critical just because a lot of times the higher level manager doesn't even see what goes on day to day, or to your point, doesn't know what else is going on that the person is overcoming. I have team members that, and I think in the current environment that we're in, a
Mhm.
lot going on that people are dealing with, and that, people just need support, including managers. And so being able to recognize differently and being able to think about that whole person is such a huge piece to how we can really have those authentic connections and those truly, hey, how am I recognizing the achievements of folks in a different way than maybe we are today? So I really like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the top-down model, it's this traditional manager to employee praise model. It's been default because it's administratively simple, right? And it aligns with traditional hierarchies. But, like I mentioned before, it is narrow. It reflects only the manager's perspective, which often doesn't align with what, employees actually need.
Mhm.
Um, the peer driven recognition, I would say, really sort of democratizes this appreciation by letting everyone contribute rather than relying solely on managers. Instead of that narrow spotlight, it's like flipping on the overhead lights, right? So suddenly all the smaller meaningful contributions become visible, and this approach makes recognition more authentic and equitable because it comes from multiple perspectives, right?
Yeah.
And what you're finding, or what we find, is um, that workers tell us this matters, right? Especially this new generation of workers is entering our workforce is far more highly motivated by it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's incredibly powerful.
So does the tool allow for, is it mostly just like reactive recognition or more proactive? Meaning, hey, you just worked on a big project. I'm going to send a note out to your peers or the stakeholders or the participants in that project to get feedback from them or get, recognition from them. Or is it more reactive? People can go out and just say, hey, I want to recognize Curtis today because he was awesome in this meeting.
Well, both actually. So it's an incredibly flexible and customizable platform that you can use. Mustard Hub is comprised of, hubs. Hubs are very much like discussion spaces, chat channels, right? That mirror social feeds, right? Like a social media feed. And there's multiple different hubs, like these discussion spaces and channels that can be, arranged in just about any way you would possibly want to customize it, whether they're only top down, whether they're community led, whether they can include peer-to-peer giving, right, of points, right? Points are this digital currency on the platform.
Right.
And you can configure these spaces to include different groups, right, within the organization, whether it's just leadership, staff, front of house, back of house, depending on what kind of organization that you're working with, engineering teams, sales teams, marketing teams, right, or any combination thereof, or people with blue eyes. I mean, literally can be for whatever reason you want to, add them to one of these channels or discussion spaces.
Yeah.
And this is where the culture happens. These are where the discussions happen. This is where folks get recognized for meaningful contributions and activities. They can tag certain values and and reasons for giving or for recognizing others. certain individuals, certain teams and groups of people as well in a lot of these messages, right? And so there's a lot of mirroring of how the social activity works. On the back end, though, a lot of different things are actually happening. We do have automated date-based recognition, things like birthdays, work anniversaries, welcome aboard. You can customize these things and make them recurring as well. You can do them or managers can actually do them in private as well. If you wanted to privately subsidize things on a regular basis, you can do that through Mustard Hub. We have different types of achievements. These are more goal-based types of rewards. So if you have things that the teams might be working towards, it could be a sales goal, it could be a wellness challenge. It could literally be elements in your 90-day onboarding checklist. And as you complete them and claim these awards, right, we get, this can all be customized, right? Managers can promote these successes within whatever channels that they choose to promote these in, right? So the team can chime in on the win. So, we have these goal-based achievements, these date-based celebrations. We have a lot of recognition templates, and these are really the behaviors that the company is looking to promote. And throughout all these messages and discussions, and using all of these types of features and functionality, right? There's analytics being collected on the back end to help understand what is the recognition density and how is it spread throughout the team? What are people being recognized for and how frequently? And is there reciprocity? And are there things that we can do to step in to help spread that joy?
Right. Okay. So how does a manager use the data? So is it something that they can then pull in for, hey, I want to know how often, Sue was recognized this year as I'm writing her review, or what she was recognized for, that kind of thing. Is that something that from a reporting and kind of analytics on the back end that they can see?
Could be. It could be. I mean, so we do have an advanced analytics engine that has virtually an exhaustive list of the types of analytics that you could possibly dream of. When it comes to analytics, I think a lot of these measurables, right? They in a vacuum, they don't mean anything, right? So a lot of it is about outcomes. And I think one of the most important and I think consequential parts of Mustard Hub happens to be our predictive analytics, right? Because recognition for the sake of recognition is great for good vibes, but when it doesn't move the business forward in the ways that it needs to move forward, right? Then then what's the point? Now, I'm all for, right, having really inclusive and really strong workplace cultures, and that's really why we do what we do here at Mustard Hub. We are creating destinations for workplace happiness, right? But we also want to do it very intentionally, right, and with goals in mind to deliver these outcomes to businesses so that the businesses can get better, and businesses get better when culture is designed intentionally, right? And so talking about all of these analytics and this, what I consider the most consequential part of Mustard Hub are these predictive analytics, right? Is being able to tell you who's a flight risk,
right?
And when. Is there an intervention window that I have with this person that I might be able to deliver some kind of personalized retention strategy for them specifically? And if so, what does that look like? Or what's the cost of churn? But what's the cost of retention? And is there a cost of churn and retention value comparison, right? Who is a good candidate for more responsibility or promotion? And so these are the types of business questions that really help managers move the needle significantly, right? Reporting is one thing, and being able to know somebody's strengths are also very important, but using those strengths to move them into a position where they can succeed is the ultimate goal of knowing those strengths, right? And so I think that that's really where we are a game changer, because this kind of technology, while it's been around, not for a long time, but it's been around and it's been available to large enterprise and Fortune 500 companies with, budgets that I'll never even imagine. Small businesses have never been able to take advantage of things like this. And theoretically, you could make an argument to say they're the ones just most disproportionately affected by it, right? A team of 20 people, when you lose one person, right, that's 5% of your entire company right out the door. A team of 2,000 people, when you lose one person, they will survive, right? And so we're bringing this software to small businesses so that they now have an opportunity to compete.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that's such a critical piece because I think recognition so often falls kind of by the wayside when you're thinking about, okay, what do I have to build or what do I have to have? I need to make sure they get paid. I need to make sure we do this, that, and the other thing. And yet it is such a critical component to I always refer to like engagement from like a thread perspective, meaning like the more threads you can tie to that team member, the
Mm-hmm.
more you keep them engaged and keep them apart. So whether that's, giving them volunteer activities or giving them different things that they can be involved in from a making it a community, making it really a workplace that's not just about, hey, I come in, I clock in, I do the things, and then I go home. Um, and so how else you can continue that recognition to drive more engagement and drive more threads for that person. It just sounds like it's a really good process or a really good tool. So let's say someone is getting recognition. How do I translate that as a leader? How do I translate that from, hey, they're getting recognition for these 4 values or for these 5 competencies or whatever that. How do I transition that into where they go next from a career development perspective?
Well, that's a really great question, and that's really, I think, going to be heavily dependent on the organization, right? I mean, that's going to be a difficult question, I think, to answer categorically speaking, right? Because your small business QSR, your restaurant down the street, your early childhood education, um, center down the street, your you know automotive maintenance spot down the street, or your wellness company, might have entirely different avenues, right, for growth, and some,
Right.
quite frankly, right. I mean, you have to recognize the fact that some may not have avenues for growth,
Right.
and so I think that giving businesses the opportunity or the visibility, right, into or surfacing these insights, right, so that they can actually see, is there somebody there who has outgrown what they're currently doing, right? Are there opportunities in management? Or, I mean, frankly, is this person being held back for one reason or another, right? And some of that might be around their benefits, right? Because they're clinging on to some of the things that they might get from, their employer or whatnot. We surface the data. We're able to provide some actionable suggestions, I think, within some context.
Yeah.
But in terms of what that means and where they go from there, I think is going to be heavily really dependent on what that business is.
Okay. So is part of the platform, are there tools that are for managers to like interpret the data, I guess is what I'm wondering.
So at the moment, we're not performance management software. With a lot of performance management software, I think that you have this ability to, right, we're looping in a lot of surveys, we're looping in a lot of, your managerial, assessments, and so forth, your job reviews, et cetera, to get kind of a picture of what your job trajectory is going to look like maybe within that organization. So those are not tools that currently exist in Mustard Hub right now. Mustard Hub surfaces some of this data and analytics when it comes to how your employees and your team are engaging with each other,
Right.
right? And then provides some predictive analysis in terms of attrition, the cost of attrition, right? How to prevent some of these things, personalized retention strategies, and where there might be opportunities for growth based on some of the things that you were just saying,
Right.
in terms of how people might be, recognized, or there could be a variety of, I think, other, you know,
Okay.
potential contributions to that.
So like the personalized retention plans that you mentioned, that's not something that this tool creates. It truly is just the data is there and you're able to then turn that into pull it, extract it and pull that into something separate.
So personalized retention strategies might factor in a lot of different things. So again, now depending on how many external systems an organization may have connected to, right? So we, like I said, we have, hundreds of integrations.
Mhm.
These integrations are able to provide information to Mustard Hub, general, I think, uh, without violating, any sort of privacy, I think, personal privacy. We're able to pull in a lot of information about the organization, and to some degree, some of the individuals. And so understanding when somebody's last pay raise might have been, or somebody's last promotion or title change, right? These types of indicators might help, influence what a strategy might look like.
Right. Right.
We may have individuals that are not necessarily, or they may be high performers within the organization, but not necessarily active in some of these communications, right? They may have a different need as far as how they may want to be, how their contributions may need to be recognized, for them to feel good about it, tying it back to that blind spot. Not everybody wants a big shout out in Mustard Hub. Not everybody wants, to have a birthday party at the office. Not everybody right? It's true. Not
Yeah.
everybody wants all of those things.
Mhm.
So, there might be people at different stages of their life that need different things. And so, retention looks different, right? Take traditional types of benefits, for example. Your health insurance is going to mean a whole lot different to 22-year-old who's still on their mom's plan, right? Or their dad's plan than, a 67-year-old soon to be retiree, different from a 40-year-old who has, two kids in elementary school. So these personalized retention strategies, that you may find through Mustard Hub, may not necessarily be designed around performance metrics that exist within the organization, but rather their whole person, I think. Does that make a little bit more sense?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. No, that's great. So tell me, other than obviously, other than yourselves, and I do want to know what booth do you have? Do you know what booth number you are at HR Tech next week?
Oh my goodness, you are putting me on the spot.
Oh, geez. Sorry. We will put
No,
it out. We'll put it in the show notes so y'all can check it out next week if you're at HR Tech. But what is one product you're looking at or that you want to go demo or see while you're at HR Tech next week? Do you have anything in mind or anything that you've seen on the vendor that you're excited to see?
I am. I'll say this, I don't know a ton of the startups that are going to be there,
Yes.
but I'm going to be spending a lot of time there because that's where the innovation starts. I'm
100%.
dying to see what all the startups are doing, where they have found some of the problems where we can start to address them with better solutions, right? I mean, all the HRIS systems and ATS systems and PEOs and payroll systems, the brokers and the consultants, we need them all. They do amazing things in our space and in our category, but a lot of them do the same, right? They're all legacy systems that do a lot of the same things the same way. And I get really, really energized when I get to see those things. So I'm excited to be around the startup area and see what they
Yeah.
have to offer. None specifically come to mind, but I'm sure there's going to be some that knock my socks off.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for those of you who have never been before, what Curtis is referring to, or one of the pieces Curtis is referring to is Pitch Fest, which is where a lot of the new startups get to pitch their new product and what they're building, it is so much fun to see the innovation and also the way people are thinking about what will move us forward from an HR perspective and what new tech to build. So definitely recommend to everyone who is joining to be at Pitch Fest and check it out. That's something that our good friend George leads the Pitch Fest, so definitely jump in on that if you can. So what else? Who are you excited to hear speak? Is there anyone that you're excited to hear speak at Tech Fest from an agenda perspective? Anyone that you have heard about now with the sessions that is right up your alley or that you're interested in talking to or hearing
I,
from?
I will say, by the way, I have found the booth number.
Oh, okay. Yes. What booth
Bef-
number are you?
Before I forget, 6414 ANM. So
Okay.
6414ANM.
A&M. So, folks, just so you know, the HR tech, if you haven't been there before, it's about 4 million vendors, and the vendor arena is the most intimidating thing you've ever seen in your entire life. But that's why we also do call out the booth numbers where folks will be, because it is really helpful when you want to go see a demo. And I highly encourage everyone to go past the Mustard Hub booth and do a demo, because it sounds really, really cool. I'm excited to actually see it next week myself. So I will be stopping by. But yeah, any speakers that you're looking forward to, or anyone that you want to hear from?
I'm very much looking forward to hearing all of the content on the future of work and really what all the technological advances, creating a future-ready organization. I think that the building political capital and influence in the age of AI is going to be a super interesting one to me. I think that HR analyst room, there's a lot of fun stuff that's going on in there. Maximizing HR app value with AI powered solutions, unlocking AI workforce potential. I'm very interested to see, we're approaching this in a very unique way, I think. And this world it's moving so fast, right? The technology, especially in this space, is moving so quickly. I feel like we are approaching this in a very unique way, but I also think that there's so much room and so much space that to some degree everybody's approaching it in a very unique way.
Yeah.
So I think hearing everybody talk about these things and kind of getting their not just implicit but really explicit perspectives on that future of work and how AI is going to be playing a big part of it is really important to me to listen to.
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. So, what is one thing, other than the booth number, what is one thing that you want our listeners to have heard during this episode about yourself, about Mustard Hub, etc.?
Well, I think that, turnover, I'd have to say that turnover remains one of the most expensive and destabilizing problems that small businesses face. I think every resignation drains thousands of dollars from businesses, forces teams to scramble to cover gaps. I think relying on intuition and exit interviews alone can't provide foresight leaders need to stay ahead of the problem. And I think that there's a real recognition gap that leaders need to learn that celebrating their people and intentionally creating that workplace culture needs to be done in a way that I think everybody can take part in, sorry, and doesn't just reflect only the way that the manager sees what that workplace looks like. I'd add one more thing that small businesses can't really afford to ignore predictive intelligence, especially the way that the world is going. It is a competitive edge. Predictive HR analytics offer a better path forward. I think it uses, like I said, this everyday data to forecast a lot of risk and give leaders a chance to act before it's too late. And the technology is accessible to organizations of any size. It's designed for operators who don't have time to be data scientists, and structured with, I think, ethical safeguards that can really build trust rather than, any kind of suspicion or things like that.
That's awesome. And I love the fact that you have that freemium model that folks can get onboarded quickly and be able to say, like, hey, what do we need to know about our retention risks, or what do we need to know about turnover costs, all of these things. I think that that's it, like any tool that can help give data or give insights to HR teams and to leaders are so critical for folks to be looking at, especially right now, like you said, just in this time of how do you keep great folks, and any way that you can build engagement and continue to use AI, use just intelligence to say what's going on with your workforce, what's going on with different teams. It's such a great and important thing to be doing. So seriously, Curtis, thank you so much for joining. I look forward to meeting you in real life next week, but thank you for taking the time today. The pre-HR Tech extravaganza, it has begun already, and we will get all the information out, get it to our listeners, but thank you so much for joining us. This is Katee Van Horn with the Inclusive AF podcast. Bye.